Good morning, delegates, colleagues, and students. We are here this morning to celebrate the continuation of an ongoing partnership between Seoul National University and Kyoto University. As we are on the cusp of redefining what is normal in this new era of living with COVID, and here at SNU we are beginning to return to in-person classes, a renewed partnership such as this reminds us of our shared commitment to educational excellence. And it offers us hope for what is to come in the years ahead as we forge forth with new visions for educational research and practice in the Asia Pacific. Together, we will define and redefine what is possible in teaching, learning, and assessment. In the past 2 days, we have heard from keynotes and panelists who have discussed the importance of multidisciplinary, multi-level, multi-sectorial, and multimodal responses to the multiple pandemics. Vaccine nationalism, climate crises, racism, gender and class inequalities, and the digital divide that we are all currently facing. But there is hope. I can hear it in the voices of those who speak about AI and the metaverse. It is not flawless, of course, and it is fraught with the potential to exacerbate many already existing inequalities. But our partnership is one that can help to maximize the benefits and minimize the detriments of moving into this new era. I can hear hope in the voices of those who speak about a renewed and reimagined social purpose in education. To quote one panelist from yesterday, education is imagination and innovation. This is the spirit of this partnership between Kyoto University and Seoul National University. The session this morning will begin with a talk by Professor Teramasa Ishii from Kyoto University, addressing educational responses to COVID-19 in Japan. This will be followed by a presentation from Professor Sun Guk-baek from Seoul National University. Each presenter will speak for 30 minutes. After the presentations, there will be a congratulatory remark by the SNU Dean and a congratulatory remark by the Kyoto University Dean before a joint signing ceremony will be held. Before we begin, let me introduce our two speakers. First, we have Teramasa Ishii, who is Associate Professor at the Graduate School of Education and the Faculty of Education at Kyoto University, Japan. His primary field of study is theory of curriculum and instruction. In his academic career, he has conducted research on the development of theories on educational objectives and assessment in the United States, such as the Tyler rationale, Bloom's taxonomy, standards-based education, and authentic assessment. He is the editor of the book Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment in Japan, published by Routledge in 2017. Next is Sun Guk-baek. He is professor in the Department of Education at Seoul National University. His research and policy work focuses on educational measurement and evaluation. He is the former president of the Korean Educational Development Institute, known as KEDI, and he is previous president of the Korean Society for Educational Evaluation. He is the author of numerous books on the theory and practice of educational evaluation in Korea. Please give our speakers a big round of applause. Okay, Professor Ishii, the floor is yours.
Okay. I'll share my presentation slides. Okay, can you see my slides? Okay. Okay. Thank you for giving me such a great opportunity to give my presentation in this conference. The title is just a moment. The title is The COVID-19 Pandemic and the Structural Transformation of Public Education in Japan, Controversies over Japanese-style school education. Okay, and the outline of this presentation is as follows. I will start with introduction. Under the COVID-19 pandemic, the purpose of schools is being questioned. In Japan, on February 27, 2020, then Prime Minister Shinzo Abe issued a sudden request to close all schools nationwide. The temporary closure period, which was originally expected to last until the end of March, was extended. And in some schools and communities, it lasted up to 3 months from March. As both adults and children were forced to stay home, there were some comments at the beginning of the closure that seemed to lead to the evaluation of the significance of the existence of schools, especially the meaning of the places and connections they provide. However, as the period of closure dragged on, distrust of schools and teachers grew, especially over the way many public schools were stuck and unable to go online. On the other hand, as the activities of private schools, out-of-school education services, and NPOs were introduced as flexible and quick to respond to the situation, the schooling and small school theory, in which school attendance is not considered self-evident, and the functions and roles of schools are outsourced and streamlined, also gained strength. Originally, Japan's ICT environment and the use of ICT in education lagged behind the rest of the world. This experience of the simultaneous closure of schools has exposed the current situation. In response, MEXT accelerated the implementation of the Giga School initiative, which aims to enable each student to use ICT terminals, such as PCs and tablets, in elementary, junior high, and high schools. Giga stands for Global and Innovation Gateway for All. The use of ICT in all schools in Japan is about to make rapid progress. In response to the disparities in learning and diversity of experience that have arisen among students during the school closure, there is a crucial view that it is unequal to provide the same content uniformly. There is a growing emphasis on the need for individualized education. In this context, individualized learning linked to the use of ICT is being emphasized. In order to achieve flexible learning that is not constrained by place or time, a shift in learning from a social promotion policy to a merit promotion one, and the rethinking of the same age class system are on the agenda. It is important to note that many of the problems faced by schools in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic and the issues discussed therein are manifestations of those faced by schools in Japan before the corona crisis. Japanese schools have a strong character of school as a community, with the classroom as a dense living group unit that is responsible not only for intellectual education, but also for social and moral education. For example, special activities and lesson study have been packaged as Japanese-style school education and exported to developing countries and other countries. On the other hand, the orientation toward holistic person education has been viewed as problematic because it tends to require teachers to be excessively dedicated and overworked. And because it is collectivist and closed system, it might be a hotbed of bullying. There were also growing voices welcoming the deregulation and liberalization of education as a crisis of Japan's lopsided egalitarianism and uniformity. The purpose of this presentation is to review the situation in Japan during the nationwide closure of schools due to the COVID-19 pandemic. To summarize the structural issues and points of contention in public education that have become apparent through the COVID-19 pandemic, to discuss the possible impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the system and education culture of Japanese style school education, which is defined by culture of Japan. The part one, impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on school education in Japan. First, let's take a look at the situation at Japanese schools during the nationwide school closures in chronological order. In the early stages of nationwide closure in March 2020, there were calls for the use of ICT, but the conditions were not in place, and many schools could not cope with the changing situation. At the same time, this period also saw the emergence of a situation in which parents' work was hindered because they could not take care of their children at school. Attention was drawn to the caregiving function that schools has been playing in facilitating economic and other activities. In Japan, where the new school year starts in April, the month of March is a time of graduation ceremonies and other events, but not much new learning in terms of curriculum. It was during the prolonged period of school closure after April that the issue of access to learning became acute in schools. The use of ICT, such as simultaneous interactive online learning, was promoted in some private schools, affiliated schools of national universities, and some local governments. At the same time, the importance of trying to maintain a rhythm of life and social relationships, such as online morning meetings, was also recognized. Many public schools lacked interactivity, only distributing home study assignments or recording and distributing class videos by individual teachers or local governments. As the phrase "never stop learning" became a rallying cry, parents and society began to distrust and complain about schools that seemed stuck and refused to cope with the changing situation. The over-dependence on schools for students' learning and livelihoods became more apparent and problematic. The problem of abuse at home became more serious. The importance of caring for children whose homes are not safe and secure place, and the concern about the widening gap in education became more prominent. Under such circumstances, some NPOs and other organizations have been providing direct support to children and families. In June 2020, classes resumed, but in order to avoid dense traffic, schools had to implement reduced school attendance for a while, or prohibited practical skills, hands-on training, and group work, even if students were fully in school. In such a situation, schools were forced to carry out educational activities under great restrictions. Under such circumstances, teachers were required to devise various ways to conduct classes, such as hybrid face-to-face and online classes, as well as disinfection work to prevent the spread of infection. Teachers had to make up for the delay in learning during the 3 months of school closure. In response, MEXT issued a notice on the direction of the guarantee of access to learning, urging that the content of the courses of study and textbooks could be handled according to their importance. In reality, however, it can be said that these curriculums were sufficiently organized and promoted in each school, and the emphasis was instead placed on restoring the number of class hours, shortening the summer vacation, and making classes run faster. With the spread of ICT in society, the effective use of advanced technology is required in the field of education. The Giga School initiative promoted by MEXT is an initiative to enable each student students to use ICT terminals, such as PCs and tablets, at elementary, junior high, and high schools in response to these social changes. The Giga School initiative is a response to the revision of the courses of study starting in the 2020 school year. And the project is not limited to the improvement of the hardware environment, such as the installation of one terminal per student. It also includes support for the use of ICT in software, such as digital textbooks and AI drills that allow students to learn freely and individually, as well as the strengthening of the instructional system using external personnel such as ICT support staff to promote the digital transformation of school education. Initially, the plan was to develop the hardware environment sequentially over 5 years, starting from 2019. However, with the spread of the novel coronavirus infection, the need for online teaching and learning has increased, and the schedule for the introduction of terminals has been moved up significantly using a supplementary budget. As a result, the installation of terminals is expected to be completed in most elementary and junior high school by the end of March 2021. In addition to deploying one terminal for each student, the plan is to establish intra-school LAN with high-speed, high-capacity lines in elementary, junior high, and high schools, strengthen the internet connection, restructure the information security policy, and promote the use of cloud computing. In addition to Giga School concept, MEXT issued a report titled Toward the Construction of Japanese-Style School Education in Reiwa Era by the Central Council for Education, with an eye on the effective use of one per student terminals. The subtitle of the report is Realization of Individually Optimized Learning and Collaborative Learning that draws out the potential of all children. By using ICT, it is expected that students can learn anytime, anywhere with anyone. Seamless learning that transcends the boundaries of classrooms and schools is oriented, and individualized and personalized learning is emphasized. Policies for the use of ICT are being implemented in terms of both hardware and software, but various difficulties have been highlighted in schools. For example, the end of August, there was fear that the Delta strain of COVID-19 would spread to children, and local governments sought to extend the summer vacation and hold online classes. However, various difficulties became apparent, such as the lack of practice in connecting online from home, the insufficient know-how on the part of teachers to conduct online classes, and the fact that the school lines would be overwhelmed if all classes were connected to the internet at once. Osaka City attempted to implement online classes citywide for about a month, starting from the end of April, but it was difficult to implement due to the disparity in the home environment of students and the heavy burden on the parents to support the students' learning at home also became apparent. Part 2, the future of community in Japanese-style school education beyond the COVID-19 pandemic. In the midst of COVID-19 pandemic, questions have been raised about the conventional wisdom of Japanese school culture and the points that have characterized Japanese schools, such as the school as a community and the orientation toward holistic person education, have been put forth for discussion. In other words, the challenge is to deconstruct Japanese-style school education. especially its communal and public nature. The following is a summary of the issues and points of contention. The first issue is rethinking uniformity and egalitarianism of Japanese schools. The lack of progress in online classes and other activities during the long period of school closures, as well as the fact that many schools were too afraid to take risks and engage in the learning and lives of the children in front of them, highlighted the problems of uniformity and egalitarianism. As a result, there is a growing desire to rethink the one-size-fits-all approach that has its roots in Japan's peer pressure and create schools that can respond flexibly to the diversity of students' environments and learning situations. There is a growing demand for individualized education. We can see a shift from the idea of equality to the idea of fairness. However, it has been pointed out that both the simultaneous closure of schools and the use of ICT may widen educational disparities due to differences in family environments. And the discourse of flexible education for each individual may lead to educational disparities and social fragmentation due to independent choices made by each individual according to his or her constraints. And the second issue is the problem of overdependence on schools. The fact that students cannot continue their learning if they can't attend school indicates the over-dependence of society and parents on schools, which has also stimulated discussion on collaboration between schools and the outside world, or outsourcing and streamlining the role of schools. The overdependence of students on schools has also stimulated discussions on the importance of the ability to continue learning independently. And the curriculum overload in Japan's schools and the harsh working conditions of teachers become social issues. The Japanese style of school education that has served not only as a learning support, but also as a welfare and holistic personal education function is at the crossroads. We need to draw a line between what should remain as the function and roles of schools and what should be relinquished. The third issue is lack of flexibility in schools and local governments. The importance of autonomous decision-making at each school and local government level has become a thing, as opposed to the rigidity and horizontalism of stacked school sites. And the true value of local autonomy is being questioned, as well as the problem of who will be in charge of the public sector. In response to the lack of mobility and flexibility, there has been an emphasis on the role of social entrepreneurs, the deregulation of public issues, and formation of markets in order to attract variety of private actors to solve social problems. This may lead to the reconstruction of public nature, but it also involves the risk of marketization of education. In light of the above issues and debates on Japanese-style school education, I would like to conclude with a summary of the prospects for reconstructing Japanese-style school education, and in particular, its communal nature. In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, individualized education tends to be idealized as opposed to one-size-fits-all education. However, the following points need to be noted. Japanese education is centered on collectivism, conformity in terms of school life, and individual responsibility, self-reliance in terms of learning. What appears to be a collectivist class lesson, when it is uniform and unidirectional, is actually a branch of individualized classroom learning between the teacher and each student. And it is up to the student's effort to learn or not to learn. See figure of next page. For example, in simultaneous classes, classes, each student focuses on the teacher's explanations and actions. And the teacher interacts with each student on a question and answer basis. And in whole class discussions, students tend to look at the teacher rather than at their classmates. When students do not understand the instructions given by the teacher, most of them will ask the teacher directly before asking each other. The vertical relationship between teacher and students is stronger than the horizontal relationship between students. The freedom and autonomy of learning, such as the idealization of self-study, stands in stark contrast to the closeness and suffocation of the classroom. However, such a culture of self-study is often connected to Japanese spiritualism and irrational striving, which attribute the cause of things to mental attitudes rather than systems and structures, and is connected at the root to Japanese conformity. In other words, one-size-fits-all education and individualized education as a new alternative may be two sides of the same coin. Therefore, we need to be careful not to allow teachers to control students remotely or to isolate them in learning by providing individualized education by utilizing ICT. The social anthropologist Chie Nakane once conceptualized the characteristics of Japanese society as a vertical society. According to the theory of vertical society, the distinctive feature of the composition of functional groups in Japan is the emphasis on sharing a place, such as the same workplace, rather than commonality of qualifications, which are the attributes of each individual. In Japan, the first person who arrives at the workplace is at the top, and the next person to arrive is at the bottom. In this way, human relationships were built with emotional dependence between the upper and lower levels that share the same place. And large groups and organizations are formed by connecting small close-off groups that share the same place. On the other hand, in the UK and India, for example, and the same qualifications such as class and caste are emphasized in organizational bonding, which tends to lead to horizontal layers. For example, in Japan, a bureaucrat has a strong vertical relationship with his or her seniors and juniors within the Mura, a close group of people who share a place of the bureaucracy. But in a society like the UK, where people are connected by qualification, there is a strong horizontal network of upper middle class people, such as bureaucrats, university professors, and businessmen. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the pros and cons of human relationships in Japan's vertical society, with individual self-reliant suppressing the spread of infection without lockdown, and conversely, conformity making it difficult to cope with the changing situation. The digital transformation of society is also deeply connected to a society in which cross-industrial networks and horizontal development generate new ideas and wealth. In contrast to the conformity of Japan's vertical society, where people tend to comply with the social pressure, and the self-reliance of Japan's vertical society, where people tend to rely on the effort of each individual, and are inclined to mentalism, we need to a perspective that emphasizes publicity, reason, and diversity, recognition of otherness, while building the abilities, relationships, and places that allow people to be themselves, even if they can leave the room, feel the pressure of social atmosphere. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Professor Ishii. We will now move to Professor, sorry, Professor Baek-Soon-Gun's presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your introduction. And I want to share my slide. Yeah, my name is Sung-Gun Baek. I'm a professor of Department of Education, Seoul National University. It is a great honor and privilege for me to be a speaker for this very important special session. The title of my presentation is Development Strategy for Teacher Education in the Artificial Intelligence Era. The contents of my presentation is the introduction, the fourth industrial revolution society. I called AI era and the development strategies for teacher education in the AI era and some policy suggestions. Education is one of the most important human activities to prepare for the future, especially the rapid changed society. UNESCO has emphasized ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. And today, in the era of post-industrial revolution or the AI era, expectations for high-quality education are growing more than ever before. However, it is very difficult to maintain and develop high-quality education for all students. One of the reasons is that the quality of education cannot exceed the quality of the teacher. That's why it is very important to cultivate good teachers to ensure a good education for all students and to continually develop. On this premise, my presentation discusses especially development strategies for teacher education in the AI era. Schwab described the post-industrial revolution in fundamentally changing the way we live, work, and relate to one another. The post-industrial revolution spanned from about 1760 to around 1840. The second industrial revolution, which started in the late 19th century and into the early 20th century, made mass production possible, fostered by the advent of electricity and the assembly line. The third industrial revolution begins in the 1960s. It is usually called the computer or digital revolutions. Today, we are at the beginning of the fourth industrial revolutions, AI era. Genovas mentioned a key goal of digital transformation in post-industrial revolution society is to provide a ROADS experience, ROADS experience. It means real-time, on-demand, or online, do-it-yourself, and social for customers, partners, employees. The post-industrial revolutions very focused on the confluence and convergence of emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, information technologies, big data, or cloud computing, something like that. Schwab believes we must adapt, shape, and harness the potential of disruption by nurturing and applying 4 different types of intelligence. First, contextual intelligence, the mind, how we understand and apply our knowledge. Second, emotional intelligence, the heart, how we process and integrate our thought and feelings and relate to ourselves and to one another. Inspired intelligence, the soul, how we use a sense of individual and shared purpose, trust, and other virtues to effect change and act toward the common good. Physical intelligence, the body, how we cultivate and maintain our personal health and well-being and that of those around us to be in a position to apply the energy required for both individual and system transformation. The World Economic Forum mentioned some jobs will disappear by 2020. Others will grow, and jobs that don't even exist today will become commonplace. The top 10 skills in 2020 is like complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordinating with others, emotional intelligence, judgment and decision making, service orientation, negotiation, cognitive flexibility, like that. OECD suggested 3 core foundations as particularly important to prepare students for rapid economic, environmental, and social changes. For jobs that have not yet been created, for technologies that have not yet been invented, and to solve social problems that have not yet been anticipated. First foundation is cognitive foundations, which include literacy and numeracy, upon which digital literacy and data literacy can be built. Second foundation is health foundations, including physical and mental health and well-being. Third foundation is social and emotional foundations, including moral and ethics. These 3 core foundations are the building blocks upon which context-specific competencies for 2030, such as financial literacy, global competency, or media literacy can be developed. OECD also suggests Learning Compass 2030. The main goal of education is well-being, and the core competence is values, knowledge, skills, attitude. And they are emphasized about the learning ecologies with peers, teachers, parents, communities. And they focused on the learner-centered educations. They focused some student agency. It's focused on autonomy or independence and responsibilities. Due to the COVID-19 outbreaks in 2019, non-face-to-face interaction or events are rapidly expanding in the world. There are so many non-face-to-face meetings or conferences recently, like this 2021 ICER Seoul National University, Korea. A new learning ecosystem is being built due to the rapid spread of the post-industrial revolutions, including the use of AI. Especially widely implemented AI-based education, including AI tutor or mentor, or metaverse or virtual reality-based education in elementary and secondary schools in Korea. Also, the era of civil space travels begins in 2021. Therefore, a new AI era also requires new development strategies for teacher educations. We usually said new wine in new bottles. The three major functions of the college and university are often referred to as education, research, and community services. Seoul National University pursues three core values: learning, creating, and sharing. Firstly, SNU honors the ideals of liberal education, aiming to prepare students to be lifelong learners and contributors to global intellectual life. Secondly, SNU strives to create a prevalent intellectual community where students and scholars promote path-breaking endeavors in all fields of knowledge. Thirdly, SNU is committed to sharing its values and knowledge to promote peaceful coexistence with others on the world stage. College of Education, Seoul National University also pursues three similar missions. First one is to train students to become experts in the fields of education for the 21st century. Second mission is to become a world leader in the research of education as a center of East Asian countries. And third mission is to aim towards implementing education that is able to direct both local and international communities. College of Education, SNU, also emphasized that a teacher have to serve as a role model by combining profound knowledge with noble conduct and strong moral integrity. This contents came from Joseon Dynasty, Taejo Annals, Volume 2. There are some words. 4번, it's a Korean reading all the Chinese characters. 4번, it means teacher, refers to one who serves as a role model by combining profound knowledge with noble conduct and strong moral integrity. Recently, Ministry of Education, Korea, suggested measures to develop the elementary and secondary teacher training system to enhance field performance and future responsiveness. For example, future curriculum should dealing or aim to develop a curriculum that integrates students' lives and subject matters to foster self-direction. Second, to foster the ability to solve problems holistically and comprehensively across various subject matters. Third, to actualize the autonomous reorganization of school-level curriculum based on the national curriculum. These kinds of comprehensive review of whole literature or governmental policies, I suggest and summarize the development strategies for teacher education in the AI era. The vision is fostering world-class education and research professionals. There are 4 missions. The first one is cultivating a good person who strives to manage himself and develop himself continuously. Second, fostering a competent instructor who can understand the students well and provide them appropriate teaching learning activities. Third, training an expert who creatively researching and developing for education. Fourth, upbringing an activity volunteer who contributes to the community with global citizenships. There are 4 exemplary models for the future teachers. One is a moral and educated person. Second, competent instructor and learning facilitator. Third, creative research and development specialist. And voluntary contributors. I suggest 8 core competencies for teachers. First, self-management competency, aesthetic emotion competency, theoretical teaching competency, practical teaching competency, creative thinking competency, research and development competency, local community competency, and global community competency. Each core competency has 3 sub-elements, like self-management competence include self-reflection, self-development, self-control. Aesthetic emotion competency included appreciation and experience, expression and creativity, high quality life and well-being. Theoretical teaching competency included learning theory, understanding of the learner, and contents knowledge. Practical teaching competency included teaching methodology, coaching and facilitation, monitoring and feedback. Creative thinking competency included novelty, relevance and reasonability, and usefulness. Research and development competency included critical thinking, research methodology, resolution, and evaluation. Local community competency included mutual respect, open-mindedness, participation, and belonging. Government community competency included multicultural sensitivity, inclusiveness, and global citizenship. I suggest some policy strategies. We should all keep in mind that a bright and desirable future is not just about coming, but about achieving with systematic preparation and sincere efforts. There are some policy suggestions for implementing these developmental ideas. Firstly, each university or college needs to elaborate on its vision and mission by reflecting its funding philosophy and the ideas it pursues. The conditions of circumstances given to each institute may differ, so it will need to plan accordingly and concretely. Second, to successfully push ahead with developmental strategies for new changes, the open dialogues, communications, and public relations for reaching a general consensus should be strengthened. Thirdly, human and material resources support should be expanded so that all members of the institute can participate actively. New changes or innovations always require extra efforts and expenses. Fourthly, each university or college must develop educational programs that are appropriate for the new era, the AI era, and to develop measurement tools that can monitor such educational programs and evaluate their performances. To manage the quality of each university or college education, improve its quality, and ensure its quality, it is necessary to establish an IR, Institutional Research Center, for each institute to collect systematically educational data and monitoring the overall education system. IR Center will become increasingly important for each university or college to the formulation of strategies for its survival and development by on-campus data utilization in the new era. Lastly, education is the most important way to prepare for the future. And the quality of education does not surpass the quality of teachers. Therefore, administrative and financial support should be actively provided to nurture competent teachers at the national level. Especially in the era of AI and an aging society with low birth rates, it should be recognized that nurturing competent teacher is more important than ever, since it is necessary to nurture all students into excellent future talents. At the same time, we should all be actively participating in nurturing competent teachers. This is main references for my presentation. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Baek, for your presentation outlining the core competencies and skills for teachers in the new future education. We are going to move next to congratulatory remarks by the Seoul National University Dean, Professor Jung-ho Shin.
Good morning, everyone. Konnichiwa at Kyoto University. I'm very pleased to have the special session today at ICER for celebrating the renewal of Memorandum of Understanding between Kyoto University and Seoul National University today. First, I'd like to thank Professor Ishii and Professor Baek for their speeches for this special session as a representative for each institution. The first agreement between the two institutions for academic collaboration and friendship was made about 5 years ago in 2016, as I remember. At the time, SNU faculty members visited Kyoto University and had the academic seminar and welcoming dinner at Kyoto University campus. I still have a good recollection on our visit and heartfelt gathering in dinner. Again, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation for Kyoto University's hospitality back then in 2016. Today, we are going to renew the MOU between the two institutions initially signed in 2016. On behalf of Seoul National University, I hope this MOU renewal to become a stimulus to strengthen the friendship and collaboration between the two universities. I thank Professor Kusumi, the Dean of College of Education, Kyoto University, for his determination to continue our relationship between Kyoto and Seoul. Also, I'd like to express my special appreciation to Professor Keita Takayama for his work to make this MOU ceremony and this MOU renewal being signed today. I hope SNU can invite Kyoto University faculty members to this conference next year in 2022 and have a special session again at ICER. And finally, I'd like to congratulate both universities on having the MOU renewal ceremony today. Thank you for all. ありがとうございます.
Now we will hear congratulatory remarks by the Kyoto University Dean, Professor Takashi Kusumi.
Hello, everyone. First, let me thank Department Chair, Professor John O. Shin, and Assistant Professor Kevin Kester at Seoul National University for your warm welcome to the SNU and KU special session at ICER 2021. Despite the ongoing pandemic, I am very pleased that we were able to stay connected online for the signing of the MOU renewal today between the Department of Education at Seoul National University and the Graduate School and Faculty of Education at Kyoto University. Starting the 2011, we have developed a strong foothold for joint academic opportunities over the years. Topics of mutual interest in the past included curriculum and assessment, education reform, and PISA in Asia. And I believe our collaboration on the two topics to be explored by SNU and KU academics in this session, the effect of COVID-19 and AI on education, is both timely and highly relevant. The pandemic has presented new and unknown challenges, yet opportunities as well. Our continued collaboration would help develop knowledge to meet these new challenges, maximizing new opportunities for the benefit of research on human mind and society. Thus, today's signing, the second renewal after the 5-year-long collaboration, sets a significant milestone for much closer research and educational collaboration between us. I know that my colleagues and I share the same feelings of excitement and optimism when we think of wonderful possibilities in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Kusumi. Now there will be a signing ceremony by both deans.
We can start?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm done.
Okay, would both deans hold up their papers? Okay, thank you very much. Congratulations to everyone. And would the deans like to make any final remarks before we finish?
Actually, it is really great to have opportunity to strengthen our collaboration, and I really hope to have you here next year. Thank you very much. ありがとうございます。
Okay, thank you all for joining the Memorandum of Understanding signing by Kyoto University and Seoul National University this morning. We indeed look forward to a very fruitful partnership in the years ahead. And with this, I would like to announce that we will end this session a little bit early. You may go to lunch early today. Thank you all very, very much for joining us, and we will see you again soon.